if you are, so whatever the loss is, if you're dealing with a major loss and finding it difficult to cope, please see a doctor. You want to tell me why?
Yeah. First time I got married, I had just got out of jail.
Still that stereotypical view that the women should just go along with what we, are doing and nod our head and say yes. And in some cases,
are some signs that we should pay attention to, not just as that the relationship is going down the wrong road, but that there's possible trauma down this road. What are some of those?
Our women have to understand that we are pre-groomed to be in these awful situations by men, because we are, generally speaking, reared to be cooperative, complimentary, patient, give people the benefit of the doubt, etc., etc. So we don't.
Sex slaves for a leader, Keith Renier, and his cult-like organization called Nexium. Renier is being held on trafficking charges. His attorneys have said he is innocent.
Who remembers that? Who remembers that story? Who remembers? I think that was like about 4 years ago or something. I'm not sure I'm being heard. I just want to check. Let me just check if I'm being heard. Yes, we are a little live. We're a little early. I just want to check. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, we're a little early. My guest turned up early, and I am so appreciative because I'm tired myself. So her being here early works for me. And so she's here. So I don't know how this conversation is going to go tonight. It might be easy. It might be smooth sailing. It might be, I might cry. I might not cry. It might stir up memories for me. It might stir up memories for somebody else in watching or watching live tonight. It might be, I don't know what it will be. All I know is that while I was preparing for tonight's conversation, I watched some other conversations that my guests had elsewhere, and I was like, oh my God, seriously? I don't have any. I don't have any issues in life, so never had any. It nothing compares. I will share a lot of stuff that my knowledge of this topic it's actually more than one topic, because I realized that I've been promoting this as a conversation about someone who has survived trafficking. But as I watched other conversations that Elizabeth had, it's about cult as well. It's I think she will clarify. But just by way of introduction, my guest tonight is an author. Her name is Elizabeth. I know I'm going to massacre her name, but she will correct me. Her name is Elizabeth Somboun. And Elizabeth wrote a book, and it's described as a spellbinding autobiography of child sexual trafficking, abuse, torture, and mind control. So, without further ado, I'm going to bring her in. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hi, how are
you? Thanks for being here, and thanks for being early, because it means I can go to bed early.
Yes, you're welcome. No worries. I'm always early.
No, that's a good thing. I prefer early. We get to start early, and we might get to talk a little bit longer if we want to, if we need
Yeah,
to.
for
Otherwise,
sure.
you're watching the clock when you start exactly at 8:30, and I'm
Yeah.
conscious of people having to go to bed or because they have work tomorrow. And so
Right. Yes.
thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Claudette. Thank you
Oh,
so much.
absolutely. Listen, I scour the internet for people to talk with, and sometimes people find me. Um, I will say up front, as I told you and everybody else who I invite. We don't have a massive platform, but we have um, people who want to hear these stories, people who want to have this kind of conversation because it is insightful,
Mm-hmm.
it's inspiring,
Mm-hmm.
it's educational.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody might say, what is educational about childhood sexual trafficking and all? It will teach us what to look out for.
Mm-hmm.
It
Mm-hmm.
will teach us when our kids, grandkids, nieces, nephews are in danger. So that's why it's educational. So I thank you for being here. But before we get into the hardcore of our conversation, I need to do my little things that I normally do, which, my little icebreakers.
Yes, yes, for sure.
So, one of the questions I ask just about every time of my guests is, I would like you to share with us 3 words, not sentences, not paragraphs, not an epistle, just 3 words of how you would like to be ascribed to you, your journey so far.
Oh
Just
wow, that's a tough one, Claude. I think that's probably one of the toughest questions anyone's ever asked me. Wow. Grit.
grit, you said?
Grit. Yeah, grit. Um, Positivity, and I would say enchantment.
Ooh.
Enchantment.
Well, as people will tell you, I normally choose one of these words. And those who are just joining us, thank you for being here. Please share the live because this is a very important conversation, especially for those people who are in denial about our topic today. But I'm doing my usual, and I asked Elizabeth Somboun to share with me 3 words that describe who she is so far. And she gave me grit, which we all understand. And girl, the fact that you are still here, the fact that you are still standing, the fact that you're smiling in this moment, the fact
Yeah.
that you're expecting a little one is
Mm,
that's total grit. I
that is
totally,
total grit. Yes,
yeah,
that is
I
total
get
grit.
that. Positivity, that too is understood because only a positive person could have gone through what you have gone through and still be doing all of these things. So the one word that I would like you to expand on for me is enchantment. What
Mm.
exactly does that mean to you
Um,
and for you?
just taking nourishing my inner kid. Like I do that a lot, finding joy in precious moments, with
Mm,
people. Just seeing the world through the eyes of a child, I think just brings so much enchantment. And I think it's a word that is not used very often, but it's probably one of the 3 things that has really grounded me. And I
mhm.
think that, the more magic you have in your life, the more blessed you're going to be, and I think the bigger blessing you're going to be for other people. So I think it's just a word that not a lot of people hear about, but I think it's a
No, it's
word that
not.
I absolutely firmly believe in.
So, not to belabor the point, you said, what do you have to be enchanted about? Without getting into all of your story, tell me what makes you feel so enchanted after
just
all that you have been
just
through.
just just the essence of love. It's such a powerful thing, and I don't think that we fully understand the gravity of that word. I think it's a word that we often just kind of throw out in the universe, but I don't think that we really understand the essence of that word as deeply as we ought to or study that word as much as we should. But I will tell you, it is such a powerful force of nature. And man, it has the ability to forgive the unforgivable, you know? And it's just like, you know, it's like it's having the, like, you know, when you're freezing cold and you come up from the cold and you have
It's
like that.
-29 outside
Okay,
here.
so you understand what I'm talking about. And then you come in and like you have like a really good cup of tea or a really good cup of hot cocoa that has like the marshmallows on top and like the whipped cream underneath and like the, you know, the baking sugar like on top or like cinnamon, and you're just like, this is the life.
This is
that life. My dear friend, is, I think, enchantment for the soul. When you can like encompass those moments and treasure them, it takes you far. It takes you so far, you know. And those are like those. That's what I mean by enchantment. You know, just having those moments that just like, yes, I'm alive today, you know, and I feel the snow on my skin, or like, you know, the sea salt on you know, on my face, and you know, you're just diving into the ocean and you have that splash of magic like in your soul. That's what it's all about. Like, I'm telling you, that's what it's all about.
Wow. Hi, Colleen. Thank you for joining us. Colleen, I don't know if you heard all of what Elizabeth was saying about enchantment, but it kind of reminds today, because we have a private group. You have to pass some high-level examination to be a part of our group.
Oh, okay.
So I asked a question in the group this morning about, you know, what are you going to release and leave behind in 2022? And Colleen was one of the persons whose answers, you know, really caught my attention, you know, because she had about 4 or 5 things that she's leaving behind. And the context of the question was, you know, this new year, new me thing is really nonsense, you know, let us get real about it. But the things that Colleen said, I said to her, this is really going to be a new you. You know, as I listened to you, I wondered whether Colleen was hearing all of the things that you were saying about why you find life so enchanting, you know, the simple things, because I think that was one of the things that Colleen mentioned that she wants to do in the new year, you know, enjoy the simple things of life even more. So, you know, I'm sure that resonates. So tell me, another one of my icebreaker questions is, what do you like to eat most on a Sunday afternoon? What's your favorite?
Wow, I'm a foodie. That's a tough one.
I'm a foodie too.
I'm a foodie, man. Let's see. Sunday afternoon. I am like, I'm kind of like, sometimes I can be like really simple and sometimes I can be very complex. But my go-to comfort food is grilled cheese with tomato soup.
Okay.
Depending on my mood. If it's like, if I'm in the mood for something like more complex, it would be like escargot and like a really good steak and like, you know, mashed potatoes on the side with like lots of gravy, or like fish and chips. So it just depends on kind of what my mood is. But those are like my top 3.
Escargot. You know,
I love escargot.
I've never had escargot because
it's really good. You wouldn't think that it would be really good, but it has like melted cheese and like flambéed butter, and like it's just like, it just makes your mouth go like, wow, this is why I'm alive.
I'm sorry, I just can't get the picture of the live escargot out of my mind to get to where you are in terms of
Fair enough.
No, to each his own, but that sounds lovely. So that's your version.
That's my version. So yeah, I go from like being like very basic to like my palate like varies, like very there's like ingredients.
get very expensive palette.
Yeah, very expensive.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that
Oh,
with
you're
us.
welcome.
So let us get to the story.
Okay.
The story. So I read where you said, or I listened because I was listening to various podcasts and stuff that you have been on. So I understand that at some point you were adopted or fostered out, correct?
Yes. So
Okay. So
I
where were
will.
you born? Or
Okay,
where
so
did
we'll
you
go
born?
back a little bit before I
Yeah,
was
yeah.
adopted. So
Mm,
I was born in tiny town in America called Henrietta, Oklahoma.
okay.
I was married. I'm sorry. I was born into so to give you a little bit of a backstory,
Mm-hmm.
my grandmother was very, very wealthy
Mm-hmm.
because
Hence you like escargot.
yeah, I guess so. I guess
Understood.
this is where, but my great grandmother came over from the Ireland during the
Okay.
potato famine, and they had settled into the California area.
Okay.
Well, I guess explorations or something, one of her relatives ended up moving to Oklahoma. And there was a lot of money in the beginning of my family. Like there was like a lot of wealth, and like they were very productive, and there was like a lot of wealth. But my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, decided to fall in love, and like at a very young age, and she fell in love with like one of the very poorest people in this town. And the history of Henrietta, it was sort of like, if you have money, you stay with the people that have money, and if you are extremely poor, you stay with the people that are very poor. And for some reason, she just decided that she was going to break the I guess that cycle, or like whatever. But she married really young. I think she only made it to like 8th grade, and she married this guy, and coincidentally had my mom. And I guess poverty brings, maybe my grandmother wasn't aware of it, but poverty brings its own set of challenges. And because she didn't have her own wealth, marrying this poor person, like they pretty much stayed in poverty. And like a few months before I was born, my Aunt Judy, my sister's mom, was murdered in
Hold
cold
on.
blood.
You said your sister's mom?
Yeah, my aunt. So my mom's sister.
Okay.
She was murdered in cold blood. And I guess because it had something to do with the drug culture and stuff like that, there was some sort of like cleaning up of the murder and stuff like that. I don't know all of the details because this was obviously before my time, but I'm just kind of giving you a backstory. So there was like a lot of stuff. And my mom, when that happened, she was 7 months pregnant with me. Now, I was conceived out of rape and incest, and then she got entangled with my dead aunt's fiance, and they were kind of, I guess, living together. And then and so his name is actually on my birth certificate, but he's actually not my biological dad. So they tried to make it work for a while, and then he was like, "You're nothing like your sister Judy. I'm done. This isn't my kid. I'm hitting the road." And so my mom had me, I think, like as a single mom for like a little while, and then she got involved with this guy when I was about 2 or 3. I think I was around 2, because my brother was born, and I was not too thrilled about having a sibling. I basically looked at my grandmother and I was like, he's a brat. Can we like return him? Like I said it exactly like that. I was like, he's bratty. I don't want him anymore. Like my brother's a pain in the neck. Can you just like, ship him off somewhere? But she had my brother, and then I was getting a little bit older, and I was in my room the one day and I told my mom, like, straight up, like, I don't like him. I do not like your boyfriend. I don't want to associate with him. I don't want to attach to him. So she sat down with me, or she was standing on the bed, and she's like, Mary, you have to like him. And I was like, okay. She's like, you know, he's providing for us. You know, I need money from him. Like, he, you know, he's like, you know, your brother's dad. Like, we just have to get along. And I looked at her, and I'm at like 3 at this point. I'm three now.
Sorry, your birth name was Mary.
Yeah, my birth name was Mary. I'll get to how all of that changed in a little bit. Okay. So I was 3, and I said, okay. I said, I'll attach. I said, if it means that much to you, I said, I will attach. Like, I don't really want to do this, but I will absolutely do this. So I skipped off the bed. I hopped off the bed, and he was on the couch. And I swung my little body onto his lap, and I was determined to make my mom happy. Mm-hmm. And we were in the middle of a commercial, and I raised my right arm up to kind of embrace him as I was sitting on the couch. Mm-hmm. And he lit my skin on fire with a cigarette. And I was screaming. My mom had to take me to the emergency room. And the doctor said, Linda, he's like, I've been doing this a long time. He's like, it's a 3rd-degree burn. This was not accidental. He said, but because I delivered her, you, and your grandmother, I'm not going to report this. But I'm going to tell you, like, I know this was not accidental. Mm-hmm. So he sends me home. I had a bandage on it for like a while. And so then he sent me home. And a couple of weeks later, after that, I was in my room. I disobeyed. My mom was leaving for work, and she was like, Mary, you have to stay in bed. Mm-hmm. And it was summertime. And I was curious. So, of course, you know, me being 3, you know, and I was precocious. Okay, I was a precocious kid. I'm not going to lie. I was mischievous and I was precocious. So I was like, it's daylight out. Like, I don't need to go to bed. Like, why did you put me to bed? So I scurry out of my bed. And I was wearing one of those really cute white nightgowns, you know, that had like the little eyelet lace at the bottom, and my little feet were just skipping off like I remember too, because like the sunlight was kind of like skipping across like the window pane, and I was curious, and so the wood floor felt like it was kind of cold against my little feet, and I had gone into my room, and because I was sleeping in my mom's bed, and then I had gone into my room, and there were these guys that were exchanging money. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I piped in. I was like, hey, like, I want money. And a few minutes later, they hogtied me and raped me. And I passed out. And by the time I awoke, it was dark. And my hair was so soaked in blood that it actually was like glued to the floor. Like, it was like, it felt like I literally had to, like, my entire face, like, I literally had to like kind of like peel it back because there was so much blood. There was just so much blood. And I looked down at my nightgown, and it had blood all over it. And I was like freaking out. I was like, and then there was like blood on the floor too. And I was like, oh my gosh, like,
hold
what
on.
am I gonna do?
Let me catch my breath, please.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No.
Sorry.
You are 3 years old.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Grown men hog-tied you and raped you.
Yep.
It doesn't matter whether it was one or two, but how many men were there? And
There
where
were three. There were three of them.
Including your stepfather?
Yeah.
And he participated?
Yes.
Oh, God of mercy.
Yeah.
Continue.
So, I freaked out because, like, I was like, great. Like, I don't really remember the act. Like, I just, like, I think my brain, like, shut that part out because I don't think that I would. Yeah, but I just remember waking up and I was like, oh my gosh, like, my mom's going to be home soon because it was dark. And I always knew that my mom came home really late from work. So I took off my my underwear was already off, but my nightgown was so soaked in blood. So I took my nightgown and I rolled it. Like, I rolled it kind of like you would roll like a t-shirt, and I threw it underneath the bed. And I don't remember so then a few weeks later after that incident.
But hold on. I'm missing something here.
Mm-hmm.
You were only 3 years of age, so there must have been damage.
Oh, there was. I'm gonna get to that in a minute. There was serious damage. Yeah, I was bleeding. So like right after that incident, my mom noticed that I was having to wear because I was bleeding so much, she was forcing me to wear like sanitary pads. So I was wearing sanitary pads because I was like bleeding through all of my clothes, and I was complaining of stomach aches, and I was lethargic. I was completely lethargic. And
but didn't she ask what happened?
No.
What do you mean no?
No.
No, Elizabeth, no, listen. One thing I don't like on my show is people telling me lies. There is no way your mother could not have asked you what happened. Or him.
She was at this point in time, she was involved in doing drugs herself. And so a lot of the stuff that was happening to me wasn't necessarily ignored by the community. Because what happened was a few weeks, well, also, I was being tortured too. People, like when she would go to work, they were holding me up against the wall and like burning my skin with cigarettes too.
People in the community?
Yeah, because they were coming, he was selling me. He was selling me to people in the community. And what happened is there was a person that had come to my house, and my stepdad was taking out blue carpet. And I was stamping my foot and I said, Mommy, where's my blood? Where's my blood, Mommy? Where is my blood? Like, my blood is gone. Where is my blood? And a neighbor had gone to my grandmother's house because we only lived like 5 minutes away from my grandmother. And she walked into my grandmother's house and she said, have you noticed that Mary's not playing outside? Have you noticed that she's lethargic? Have you noticed that she's been bleeding? Have you noticed that like people are going in and out of the house, but like Mary's never seen? And the neighbor said to my grandmother, you know that she's being trafficked. And my grandmother said, she didn't say anything. And my grandmother admitted this to my editor because my editor was like, she was shocked. And so she was like, I need to interview your grandmother.
I am shocked.
So she asked my grandmother point blank. She said, in order for me to write this book, I just need to know the truth. Was Mary trafficked at the age of 3? And my grandmother said on the phone, yes, she was absolutely trafficked.
So why didn't you do anything?
So what happened was, as I was being severely abused, trafficked, starved, all of that kind of stuff, one of my mother's friends had told the judge, and Henrietta told the authorities, like, this girl is being trafficked. Her younger brother is being severely abused. So my brother had so much brain damage that where the cranium is, instead of having brain, there's actually bone.
Oh, Jesus of his mercy.
So what happened is my mom freaking out about the fact that, you know, she, like, it was basically a mandate. It was like, either you show up at this court date or we're going to forcibly remove the kids from your care. Like, this was not like, oh, we're just going to investigate. There was like a huge thing that said, nope, we're going to absolutely positively remove the kids from the house if you do not make this court date.
Okay,
Court date.
let me.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so Colleen is saying, good night, Paulette. Thank you for being here. Colleen is saying she's making the same. Your grandmother knew and did nothing.
Yeah, she knew.
Can you remind me, where is Henrietta in the United
so
States?
Henrietta,
Oklahoma, you said, right?
Yeah, it's
Is
like
it a small, tiny town?
It's
or
tiny.
backbush?
It's very tiny. It's very tiny.
Rural?
It's very rural. It's about 2 hours south of Tulsa and about maybe 3 hours north of Oklahoma City.
So this is something that, at least I would hope, used to that happen there to kids a lot. Is it?
I don't know. I do know that I have recollections of me in my underwear, and there were Polaroids taken of me. And there was another girl sitting with me, and they were forcing me to touch the other child, and they were selling the photographs. That much I do know for sure.
Elizabeth, Paulette is saying this is too much for me. And it's not.
It gets better, guys.
It's not. No. You know what? Gets better. You know what? It's not too much for me. You know why? Because people need to know that this is happening.
It's really crazy, because what a lot of people don't understand is that a lot of times when it's male sexual abuse, it's often the women who are actually molesting boys and cousins and stuff like that. Like human trafficking, child molestation, child rape always usually happens with somebody within the family. Like, this is not uncommon. And a lot of times pimps will purposely keep a girl to raise it for the sex industry. It happens in Calcutta in India. It happens in the United States, because it's just sort of like, oh, and when you look at the language of pimps, they're actually called cattle in the barn. That's how girls are referred to in this industry. They're not like, oh, I have my ladies. No, they're actually referred to as cattle. This is like very common street knowledge. And
Elizabeth, I'm so happy we're having this conversation, as painful as it is for some. You know why? So a lot of my audience, most of my audience, are either in Jamaica or are Jamaicans.
Mm-hmm.
And they know it. Mm-hmm. But for those of us outside looking on, I've noticed a trend of smaller and younger children going missing. Mm-hmm. You know, and people are not paying the attention that they need to pay to what is going on. So with you saying this tonight, I need them to hear it.
It is. It's not, you know, we think of like runaway girls and stuff like that. It's not. It's often, you know, maybe not necessarily biological children that this happens to, but a lot of men will look at insecure, financially depraved women and saying they will basically gaslight them so they can sometimes sexually abuse their kids, put them in child pornography, whatever. As a matter of fact, a couple, like, not this past year, but the year before, I was working for a nonprofit called Engaging Minds, and I was in a lot of groups where sex trafficking happens. And this is a true story. This guy was on the internet. He was attempting to sell 3 of his biological children online. And the guy that he was trying to sell them to actually called the cops, and literally 15 minutes later, she actually had like riot cops burst into her home and arrest her husband for trying to attempt to sell her children.
His children.
And there was 3 of them, and like the youngest, I believe, was like 2.5. Like, this isn't as common. This is not as uncommon as people want to think. I have heard of victims that had like babies that have gone into foster care that have chlamydia, herpes, like HIV, because of sexual abuse. This is not as uncommon as people want to believe. Like, my story is kind of uncommon in the sense that I've like survived this long. Most people who've been sexually abused usually commit suicide.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's kind of a miraculous thing that I'm still here. But I will tell you that yes, this is absolutely true, because I didn't remember any of this until I was 23.
You went through therapy?
I had to go to therapy. I was actually in therapy, and I was starting to have regression. Like, I was starting to have like regression memories like start coming up. And I called my grandmother and I was like, was I raped at the age of 3? And she said, oh no, my darling. She said, you just weren't raped. She's like, you were trafficked. Oh,
she actually said that to you?
She said that to me on the phone.
Well, why didn't she do anything?
I don't know. And I don't know if it was just maybe she was afraid that she was going to get in trouble. I don't know if it was because, you know, you have to remember too, she just lost her youngest daughter like during like a few years like prior to all of this happening. So I don't know if it was just because, you know, sometimes when people are in grief, like they're just not coherent, you know, like they're just like, you know, kind of oblivious to what's going on. I'm not really
I'm
sure.
not casting blame. I'm not casting blame. But did you ever ask her, Grandma,
I couldn't.
why did you do nothing?
I couldn't. I could not ask that, because there's certain truth that can bury you.
Mm-hmm.
And it took a really long time for me to just heal from that part of my story, because like I have like more trauma on top of that, and I didn't really want to know the answer because I was afraid that if I really knew the answer, like I was gonna have to deal with like a tsunami of rage, and I couldn't put myself through that. Okay. And so I think certain times that statement is true, that ignorance is bliss. Mm-hmm. And so because I've been able to compartmentalize her reasonings, it's easier for my brain to cope with it. I don't think that I would be able to look at her the same way.
She's still alive?
She's still alive. And I don't think that I would have been able to have brought her to Canada.
You brought her to Canada from...
I did. I gave her a vacation here for 3 months, even after I knew this, just because like I felt like she needed to know that I forgave her. I needed her to know that I still loved her, but I was not going to be able to do that if I had asked her, why didn't you do anything? Because that was like, it wasn't her sin. It wasn't her guilt. It wasn't her shame. And I was just like, it's just better for me not to know.
I'm not going to push you on it, but all I'm going to say about her and you're not asking her, you are 100% better than I am, because I would have had to ask her.
No, it's only by God's grace, because, you know, I'll get to this in a second. So I'll try to kind of wrap up that story, and I'll explain to you why I was able to forgive. So, shortly after that, we had moved to, so my mom was dealing with court stuff. We moved to San Antonio, Texas with her uncle. So it was my great uncle. And after I had witnessed a murder that he had committed in the bathtub, it was shortly after that my mom just surrendered us to an agency. I don't know who the girl was. Like, she wasn't someone that I was overly close with, but she knew who I was. And I was with her the day that she died in the bathtub.
He murdered somebody in the bathtub so that you all could see?
Yeah.
It,
Yeah. He had taken her head and bashed it up against the side of the tub. And I was scurrying around the house to look for towels to stop the bleeding.
how old were you?
4.5. And I couldn't get the bleeding to stop. And I was super panicked. I was crying. I was hysterical. And she looked at me and she said, Mary, she says, I'm going to go home with Jesus now. Can you pray with me and take me home? And I said, I don't want you to die. I don't want you to die because, like, I want to go with you. And she's like, you can't, sweetie. You're too little. And I was like, I'm not too little. And she's like, you are, but can you just pray with me so I can just, like, I don't have to be here alone. And so I prayed with her and she died. And a few minutes later, there were 2 EMT people with her. I don't know what they were doing in there because the cop, an amazing cop, was dancing with me in my living room to distract me. And he picked me up and he had, like, I was wearing his hat and stuff. And I was just really, really distracted. And then I remember the gurney had come out and they had put like this black, really thick plastic over her body and they were reeling her out of the house. And there was a little slope that had gone up to the front door and they had hit it and her arm kind of like bounced out of the plastic. And that was like the last memory I had in that house. The only other memory that I have is the day that my mom was signing a whole bunch of papers. There was this lady that had blonde hair and I was singing very loudly in the living room with Clayton, my brother. And it was sunny and it was hot and there were all of these papers. And then shortly after that, my mom was sitting with me on the steps and she looked at me and she said, I remember she said, I can't take care of you anymore. And she's like, you're going to go to another family that can take care of you. And I was like, what do you mean? Like another family? I was like, what's going to happen to you? Like, I can't protect you if you leave me or if I leave you. And I was like, I don't know what to do. And she said, just take care of your brother. And then we went into, a really tiny car that had the racing stripes in the back. And I didn't look forward until I couldn't see my mom anymore. And then we had gone into a temporary foster home. And I was so mad, too, at the lady at the foster home because she was bathing my brother in the sink. And I was like, he's big enough to be bathed in the bathtub. Like, you don't have to bathe him in the sink. Like, I was pretty adamant about that. And then the next memory I have was me being adopted into my next family.
What a journey.
So the problem with adoption is the fact that a lot of times, because biological parents already have a lot of shame that is attached to that, a lot of times you're not going to get the full story of what's happened to your kid. And I remember the very first meeting that I had with them was really fun. It was inside a hotel that overlooked the Riverwalk in San Antonio. There was this massive bed. Oh my gosh, it was the biggest bed I had ever seen. And I was jumping up and down and I was so happy and I was so ecstatic and I was just like brushing her hair and then like the brush got stuck and she was like playing around about the fact that it was like hysterical, like she was acting hysterical because like the brush got stuck. And then the maitre d' had brought up this brownie. Oh my gosh, it was the best brownie and it had like this like warm chocolate that just like it was like bathing in this brownie. I remember this so well. And I was eating the brownie and suddenly I got really sick. And I was suffering from starvation. And they didn't know. They thought that it was nerves. They thought that it was something else, but it was actually because I wasn't eating and I couldn't keep food in me. And so I was throwing it up. I was throwing up all of my meals because I had been starved, because I was living off of dog food for so long.
Elizabeth, listen.
Yeah, I was living off of dog food. So
you said it was going to get better.
It does. I promise it does. I swear it does. So the family was thinking, like, you know, she's just like, they thought that it was nerves and whatever. And so they didn't have like a very good grasp of like, you know, adopting and like all of that kind of stuff. So they kept me for a while. And my brother, they noticed that. So the very first doctor's appointment visit I had done with them, I just remember the doctor saying, vaginal damage. There's been severe vaginal damage. And when we had come out of the doctor's office, she looked at me and she's like, I kind of wish you had a sign that said that you were adopted. And I didn't understand like what she meant by that. Like, I didn't understand like vaginal damage, but I remember as a kid, if I laughed, I accidentally peed myself. I had no vaginal flooring left. I had like my vaginal area was like damaged like a 35-year-old like after they have babies. I literally had no pelvic flooring. If I laughed too hard, I peed. If I ran too hard, I peed. Like, I literally had like bladder issues and pelvic flooring issues. I've had it all my life. I've always had issues with that my entire life. And they couldn't fix it, or because I didn't really tell anybody that this was happening. But I had acid reflux since like the age of 5. Like really bad acid reflux, like where I would get like heartburn and stuff. And
I want to get to the part where it gets better.
Okay, so that wouldn't be okay. So
I'm sorry because
oh my gosh,
my heart is breaking so much. No, I'm sorry. I don't mean to rush you, and I'm kidding.
Okay, so
my
then
heart is breaking so much for you.
I will skip through like a lot of bad stuff really quickly. So that family put me up for adoption. They kept my brother. They put me up for adoption. They left me in an airport.
What?
I went to I
left you in an airport.
They just told me like this one year, they're like, we're not keeping you. And they're like, it's come down to us not having money, and we can't put you in a residential facility, and we cannot keep paying out $150,000 for your psychiatric appointments. So we're keeping your biological brother, but we're not keeping you. And they said, you're going to be going to Texas to this place called St. Jude's Ranch for Children. And she's here to pick you up. So they left me in an airport with the lawyer of the agency. So then I was orphaned for a year, and then I got adopted into a cult.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Elizabeth, look.
Okay, so then I get adopted into...
Hold on. Paulette is saying, yes, I'm waiting for the good part. My Lord.
Okay, so then that family kidnapped my first 2 children out of my first marriage.
Hold on. So you managed to have 2 kids?
Yeah. So from my marriage, I was married. I did it all right. Age? I got married at 19. Age? At 19, I got married. I got married to one of the loves of my life. We had 2 beautiful girls. He was from England. I was obviously from the States. And my parents single-handedly destroyed my marriage. And
how did they destroy your marriage?
They basically told my husband, if you don't sign, we don't know what documents they were, but they're basically like, if you don't sign the documents, we're not going to sponsor you anymore because we really hate our daughter. And we don't really want her to be a mom. And we just, if you don't do this, we're going to deport you.
Hold on. This is your biological.
This is my very last, second to last family that did this. And they didn't even tell, like, when all of this happened. It's kind of a long story, but if you read the book, like, you'll understand like all of the context. But essentially what happened is they didn't tell my in-laws in Britain that this was going on. They gave him absolutely no parental rights. They stalked him with a private investigator to figure out where he was living at the time. it was a whole disaster. So shortly after that, I moved to Canada, got married. I had another son who's amazing and he's brilliant. Went through some stuff, not anything as traumatic as my childhood, but I did go through some stuff. And 8 years later, I was in an abusive relationship. God told me to get out, and he's like, I want you to go online and find a really good Asian guy. That was God's command. So I'm on this dating site, and God's like, this is the one. This is the one. And he had like tattoos, and he's got like all of this like gorgeous hair. And
is this the good part?
This is the good part, guys.
Oh my God, we're there.
This is the good part. This is the good part. So I meet him, and he just falls in love with me. And he says, I just love you to death. And he became a Christian. And then he's like, okay, we're going to get married now. And I was like, what? Marriage? What? And I was like, okay, God, I'm like, if you're wanting us to get married, like provide like the funds for us to get married. And so then God led me to do surrogacy in 2018. So a family got a beautiful baby girl in 2018. France won the World Cup too. So for those of you who aren't France friends, I'm sorry, but they won the World Cup, and then we got married, and it was so incredible because the grandmother of the family that I gave the baby to, she comes in and she looks at me and she's like, your soul wounds have been healed today. God loves you. Keep going. Like, this marriage is from God. You're going to be fine. You're going to have a ministry. You're going to help people with your story. I was like, how the heck? Like, I didn't even tell, like, she didn't know me from Adam. And she prayed for us and she blessed us. We got married 2 weeks later. And then very next year, I decided to become a life coach. I wrote my autobiography. I got certified in life coaching, and I now write for coaches and consultants. I write children's books that have Christian undertones, and God is just amazing. And here I am.
Elizabeth?
Yes.
Years ago, I took it upon myself to go study theology.
Mm-hmm.
And I did so. I deliberately chose a Catholic university seminary because in my belief at the time, you know, Catholicism was kind of like one of the roots of Christianity.
Yes.
So I wanted to get it from the horse's mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, while there, I was in class with, I have two stories to tell you about that period. I was in class with young men who are going to be priests, and you know, with various different classes. And I remember adamantly saying to them, "Me, one, I'm not Catholic, but if I was Catholic, I wouldn't be a Catholic for long because I would not be confessing to any of you guys because you have not seen life, you have not experienced life. You claim that you have never had sex, and all that. So why would me, a woman with a past, be confessing to you guys who don't have a clue? As for you, Elizabeth, I will confess every one of my garden sin any day of the week."
Maybe I should have become a nun.
If you tell me to come on Monday to confess, I will be there. If you tell me come back Monday evening, I will come and confess some more. Because Elizabeth, this snippet of the story that you just gave us, it had me in horror. It had me in tears. It had me, oh my God, please get over it. Can we get to the good part? I have never heard such a story. Never. And it has, and as Paul says, to God be the glory, you are a strong woman. Strong does not begin to describe you. And it makes, you said earlier that one of the three words that describe you is grit. Now I get it even more. What I don't get, and you're going to have to share this with us, because I know people personally, myself included, and I know people online and so forth who don't have an ounce of the amount of positivity that you have after what you have been through. And they've been through nothing close to what you have been through. You know, how do you remain positive. How can you even talk about enchantment? You said that the third word.
Holocaust survivors.
Enchantment. After being raped at 3-year-old.
Well, one of the things, because when I met Brandon, I wanted the secrets to life. And I was trying to think, okay, where do I get secrets to life? Because at this point now, I knew that I was sexually trafficked. I knew that I was conceived out of rape. I knew I was conceived out of incest. And I was like, okay, God, how do I find life? How do I find life? Because I said, there's no how to for dummies on surviving sex trafficking at the age of 3, right?
No.
So I was like, okay, I have to dig deeper. And you know what? It was really awesome because when I was a little girl, the family, because they were kind of in a cult all on their own because they were a homeschooling cult. But my church was not a cult. And my pastor, Peter Spencer, his mentor was Hans Pillay, who helped Holocaust, like Jewish people during the Holocaust.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking about that. And I was like, ding, 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 Holocaust survivors. I need to find Holocaust survivors. So I Googled in YouTube Holocaust survivors. And the Shoah Foundation from Steven Spielberg came up.
Mm-hmm.
And they were all live interviews from 1986, 1987. And so I was like, aha. And because I'm a perfectionist, I spent 6 months, 10,000 hours studying their lives and pulling out their keys. And God gave me 23 keys to get victory. And I live out those 23 keys every day, maybe not all of them, but a lot of them. And I found happiness. And I have to honestly, I wrote to Steven Spielberg and I sent him an instant message on Facebook. And I don't know if he got it, but I said, I just want you to know that your foundation saved my life. And that's how I healed. It was because of people that had gone through something so much worse than me. And I was like, okay, if they can, find attachment, find healing, find joy, find enchantment, find all of these things, so can I. And I just applied all of the keys that they had already left for me to pick up, and here I am healed. And that was a mercy of God. And I honestly can't take the
most important key for you from those 23, if you had to choose, or however many you can share.
Forgiveness was huge. Living in the moment, understanding that your story has a purpose, that you still have dreams even after the ashes fall, that God gives second chances, that there's still a purpose in your life. And I guess the other thing is strive to make the world better than where you found it. I guess those are probably my biggest ones that I follow and that I've really embraced.
Elizabeth, Jesus of his mercy. Sorry, I'm not blaspheming or anything. It's when I'm at a loss for words, because I thought I'd been through stuff, but every time I talk with someone, I realize that I'm a baby.
Though, this is the thing, trauma, you can have like blatant trauma, but it doesn't matter, like, if you've gone through something and it hurts you, it's just, it can be hidden trauma, and just because like I've gone through a lot, it doesn't necessarily mean that people that have, maybe if you've gone through a divorce and the way that you've perceived it, or the way that it's affected your life, it doesn't negate your trauma. And that's one of the things that I've really, really learned is having empathy. And, you know, somebody doesn't necessarily have to have like blatant trauma to necessarily be hurt. There's a lot of hidden trauma that people deal with, you know, prejudice and racism, like those huge things, like that, those are traumas and may not be necessarily as maybe like as bold as what I've come across like in my life, but it's still, you know, trauma. But, you know, here is the thing, you know, mercy, grace, forgiveness, you know, that's the empowerment that we get to overcome, you know, big traumas like mine, or maybe even, you know, maybe what I would consider trivial, but maybe big traumas to other people. And, you know, that's the cool thing about the cross, because it doesn't discriminate against traumas, that we can all lay our burdens down and then we all get a new identity in Christ. And that's the excitement, you know, that's the exciting thing, right? Because then it's like we get to have these legacies that other people can build upon. And then we get to change the world. And it's like, it doesn't matter like necessarily what our story is, but what the truth is that God gives us. And that's the cool thing, right? Like that is like, that's the biggest thing. Like that's the most, that's the enchantment part.
The joy is so infectious.
You know, it's just like, wow, like I get to do this for like a living, and like I get to do this awesome thing. And you know, does it always mean that I'm perfect? No, but it just means that like I get a second chance. I get a third chance, fourth chance, fifth chance, because of this almighty, mighty 4-letter word called love. And when we embrace it and we just like, we get enraptured by it, big things happen. And that is the key to life. That is the key to life.
Wow. You know, I was going to ask you something, but after that, I don't want to bring you down. I don't want to bring any of us down. You know, she's not here tonight, but my co-director of the Daughters of Sheba Foundation, Clara Brown, we have this talk show, and she keep on calling me Debbie Downer because I always ask a question that just changed the atmosphere, and I don't want to do that, so I won't even bother ask what I was going to ask. Oh my God.
And Nelson Mandela actually is one of my other big heroes, because this is the thing. Yes, because when I found out at 23 everything that happened, I was really angry. Like I wasn't in the state, obviously, when all of this like happened and transpired, because I was like, there was so much mourning. There was so much mourning and so much grief and so much loss that I was dealing with. And Nelson Mandela's words, and he's like, when you don't allow forgiveness, you are literally giving, you're in the same prison. Like the door has been open, but you're still in that same prison. And so I was determined I was going to forgive. I was so determined in my perfectionist state. It's like, nope, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it right. So I actually called my grandmother for the guy that trafficked me. I actually asked for his picture to hang it on my wall.
So are you crazy?
No, because Nelson Mandela did this with all of his guards. And I was like, if Nelson Mandela can do this, if the cross is big enough for him to do that, then the cross is big enough for me to do this. And I realized something. I was like, I want this guy to be saved. That was like my big goal. I was like, because when he gets to heaven, he's going to ask Jesus, why did I come here? And I wanted Jesus to say to him, you know, that girl that you trafficked all those years ago, she's been praying for you. And that's why you're here today. And I want to meet him in heaven and hug him and say, see, it was all worth it. So
I said, you're 1,000 times a better person.
So I asked my grandmother, but you know what the crazy thing was, is she had mailed it, but she ended up having a stroke. And for some reason she lost it. And I think God was like, it was like a test, because I don't know if it would have been completely healthy for me to have like his picture hanging on my wall. But I think God was just testing me and saying like, okay, how deep is your forgiveness going to go? Like, how much do you really trust me with this thing called forgiveness? And that's the cool thing about all of this, because I have this DNA, because it says in the Bible that we get like this new DNA and new identity in Christ, right? Which means that we get like this new identity and DNA to actually forgive. It actually becomes a part of our DNA sequencing. And so then it was like, yes, I did it. I accomplished, like I passed like the big test of like, where does my identity lie? And then I was like, yes, I conquered that. And then I was just like, okay, it's going to be okay from here. Like,
okay, so Elizabeth, I have to ask you this. I don't care if anybody wants to call me a Debbie Downer. I don't care. Are you saying to me that a woman who has been, I hope Facebook doesn't block this, but a woman who has been assaulted, let us say, should forgive her assaulter?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
I like that.
Because it worked for me. But I don't know everything. I'm not omniscient. I'm not omnipresent. I'm not God. And that is, I struggled with that because I wrote a poem to the guy that raped my mom, my uncle who raped my mom, another uncle that raped my mom, that conceived me. And I said in my poem to him, I said, I don't know if I should be angry with you because the evilness that you put upon her created me. But I said, I surrender it to the mighty hand of God because he knows the ins and outs of all of this. But I said, it's not for me to figure out on this side of the veil. I don't know. Because I know that it worked for me, but I'm not walking in someone else's shoes. And I don't know their life circumstances. But I know that God's love can cover up their shame. And I know that God's love can cover their own unforgiveness. But that's not for me to answer. I can't, Claudette. That's something that's way beyond me.
I was waiting for you to finish because this is one of the most genuine answers I've ever had to that question. I don't know. That's not for me to say. Because you have people who will say, yes, God says you must this. And then you have other people say, no, never. I love your answer. It's for each of us to get our own salvation, however it looks for each of us.
Yes.
Each of us will work out our salvation.
Mm-hmm.
And someone says, forgiveness is for you, or for the woman, not necessarily for the person who assaulted her. So that's another take. And Paulette is saying, just like I am, girl, I love you. You're a true woman of God. Elizabeth, this has been a journey, and we just scratched the surface. But my heart couldn't take any more, to be honest with you, because I was angry for you. I was angry on your behalf. I was angry. You see, I am I have a daughter.
Oh, yeah. That gets complicated.
I have a daughter. I have two granddaughters. And I have two granddaughters. And I shared a story maybe of 4 lives ago that at the age of 2 was the first time I was assaulted. And like you, I didn't know until in my early 30s when I met my assaulter and he hugged me. And just like you, I had a flash. I saw what he did to me when I was 2. So for me, and many things like you happened to me after that. And for me, I lived my life in such a way that I would do bad things to anybody who touched my daughter. I lived to protect her because of what happened to me. And I did protect her, whether she wants to tell the world that or not. You know, the
Mhm.
things that I did to protect my daughter led me to bankruptcy.
Mhm. Mhm.
You know, just to make sure that my daughter was okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
As I listen to you tonight, I know my daughter is okay. But as I listen to you tonight, I'm thinking of my two granddaughters. One of them is 8 and one is 3.
Mm.
You talk about what happened to you at 3. I'm just seeing that baby's face in my. I was hearing you. I was fully with you, but I was seeing my granddaughter, and that's why I asked you the question about your grandmother. You know, because there is no way under the sun that even my daughter, if my daughter come to me now at 37 and
Mhm.
said her husband did this to her, that would be it.
Mhm.
That would be it for me.
Mhm.
Even at 37 or whatever her age is, she don't like when I tell people her age. What, whatever her age is, married woman, if she got off of her prideful stool and said to me, Mom, this, that my husband did, that would be it. I'd be wearing blue. In Canada, oh, you know that. In
Yeah.
Canada, and I
Yeah.
work in the prison system,
Mhm.
we don't wear
Mhm.
orange, we wear denim.
Yep. You were denim. Yep.
So
Yep.
I would be in denim. Denim would be my new favorite fashion.
Your new fashion trend.
Yeah.
It's crazy because when it comes to other people, I do have a very strong justice, and I cannot see people bully or hate or treat other people with inferiority. And for some reason, I guess because of things that God showed me in that moment, it was kind of a supernatural thing. And I guess that's kind of why I was able to move past it. But I understand where you're coming from. One of the things that God said to me, I was praying about it early on when all of this was going on, and I was praying, and God said, "Do you trust me?" And I said, "Of course I trust you." And I almost felt like Peter, in the Bible where Jesus asked, "Do you love me?" But it was "Do you trust me?"
Mm-hmm.
Do you really surrender your life? And I said, "Yes," but I said, "I don't understand." I said,
Why?
"Yes, but I don't understand." I said, "I don't understand why this happened to me." Because
Mm-hmm.
I said it caused me so much pain, and I said it caused me to have attachment issues, and it caused me to have so much grief for the first few years of my life, and why. And I love God so much because he is just he's so patient, he's such a patient God, he's such a patient dad, and I love that. And he said, "What do you know about sin?" And I said, "I know that when we have sinful moments, that your spirit, you're still watching us, but the Holy Spirit leaves, because it can't convict. It can't convict us anymore because we're not attuned. It's like a radio station, you're either attuned to evil or you're attuned to the Holy Spirit." And he said, "Do you think that your trafficker was attuned to anything good?" And I said, "No."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "I was there, but I said I couldn't stop it because in order for anyone to stop a sin, the Holy Spirit has to be there."
Mm-hmm.
But my Holy Spirit wasn't there. And I think it kind of, because of the book The Shack, I love authors that put God in such in a tangible way where you can almost taste the words and feel God, and I love authors like that. And I broke for my trafficker
You what?
because I broke. I spiritually broke for him because I felt so sad. I felt so so hurt for him because I was my gosh, like, what did you go through as a kid that caused you to do this atrocious thing to me? And I guess the only thing that I wanted to do was just like hug his inner kid and just tell him that he was forgiven, because I was just so broken when I thought about that. Because God was like, because when I saw the book The Shack and he was standing before wisdom.
You need to be my life coach, Elizabeth. You need to be my life coach, because you are something different.
So when Matt was looking at wisdom and he was looking back at his and then his dad was looking at, like, when Mac was looking at his dad's inner kid, and wisdom asked, do you want to punish the child? Mac was like, I can't do it. And when I was looking at my trafficker, and then I was looking at his inner kid, I broke, because I was like, why wasn't anybody there to love you? Because the presence of you being hated led to something so atrocious. And I realized that this was like really profound, probably more profound than I even realized, probably more like, I'm like looking at your eyes and like it's like really profound for you, so I don't really know like the power of what I'm saying right now, but it was so profound. And
I'm here in amazement.
And so I was just like, and I was like, okay, like I have to do enough in the world when I'm alive, so that way people know that they are loved, and that when they encounter me every single day, that they feel genuinely loved by God. Because I was like, that's the only way this world is really going to get fixed, because otherwise everyone's just going to stay in darkness, and I can't let that happen on my watch, because God's too big, love's too big, mercy is too big. And it was just like, okay, I have to be a vessel of love, and I can't allow these stupid things of past and hate and lust and lying. I can't let that get in my way. Like, I have to stay so close to God, because by the grace of God, there goes I. And if I don't stay close to God, then I failed, and then the legacy starts all over again.
But I don't want to prolong this, but I think though, and I want you to think about it as I am going to think about. No, I'm being very honest. I'm going to think about. I'm actually going to pray about it. I pray differently from you probably, but I'm actually going to meditate and reflect on it. What you just said about breaking for somebody else's inner child, meaning empathizing with what they went through as a child that led them to this point, or to whatever point they are at, doing whatever atrocity, whatever that looks like. I'm going to think about that, and I'm going to reflect on that, because I think I do okay, but I can do better listening to you tonight. So yes, you have touched me. But I also want to touch you and ask you, because I've never went through anything like you, but I've gone through my own fair share. And I could have turned out to be some kind of crazier person than I am. But something touched me. Maybe somebody broke for me, but something touched me and told me, hey girl, smarten up, wise up. And I encountered angels, and I had to take responsibility. I had to stop blaming my childhood, people, so forth. So my question to you, what I want you to ponder, not necessarily answer me, but what about those people's own sense of responsibility for their own lives, for their own journey? You know, I understand me sitting back and thinking about, okay, that person must have gone through all of that. But at what point do they man up or woman up and realize that I can't do this to people?
when they hit rock bottom and darkness within themselves. Because
See,
it's not until we hit rock bottom in
that's
the
true.
darkness within ourselves and we realize that there's nothing that we can do to bring in our own light, that we can't heal our own sin, that we can't heal our own brokenness, and we're surrounded in complete darkness in our minds, in our souls, and in our spirits, that we look to God and say, okay, mend it.
Mhm.
And then we take all of that broken glass and we say, okay, make a mosaic. Make my life into the beautiful mosaic that you want it to be, so your light, your love, your mercy, your forgiveness shines through me. And that's the key.
Another profound answer. Another profound answer, because as much as I want to forgive people, as much as you want to, as much as you have, even more than I have, there comes a point that your trafficker has to take responsibility, personal responsibility.
Yes.
He might never say, please forgive me, Elizabeth, but in his own darkness, there comes, and you're absolutely right. He, she, they, everybody along your journey must come to a rock bottom moment when they seek a different way. Elizabeth, this has been so amazing.
Thank you so much for having me on, Claudette. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
I mean, you have shared and taught us so much here tonight. And I just want to, before we sign off, bring up your book. Elizabeth's book is available on Amazon. I'm not sure if it's available anywhere else. Elizabeth's book is available on Amazon. It's called Elevators of My Life. It's available in hardcover. There's a Kindle edition, and there's a paperback. The prices are there. Please go have a look, purchase, buy it for someone in Christmas, buy it for someone in darkness, so that they have a read and realize how they're being in the world. This book is a great read for me, but it's also good for somebody who might be struggling with how they're being in the world. Let them realize what they have done, and that something just came to me. What they meant for evil, look what it turned out. Look what it turned out to be. What these people meant for evil, look at her. Just look at this woman. Have a look. Look at that smile. Look at that smile. Look at that enchantment. Oh my God. Nobody could look at you and realize and know what you have been through. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
Claudette, thank you so much. And I just want to, I will continue to pray for your ministry, continue to pray for all of the lives that you're encountering, for the things that you are doing to bring hope, healing, and forgiveness and mercy into this world, because it counts and it matters. And this is such an important cause. And keep going. You're making it count. You're making it count. You're sending all of those good ripples across the world. You're doing great work, my dear sister.
Thank you, my dear sister. We met and we chit-chatted, but this was what we needed. And
Amen. Thank you so much.
Have a good night. And
all right.
Thank you, everyone, for being with us. Thank you, Colleen, who just wrote that this is all part of the plan, your journey. And she also said, unfortunately, the person will have to atone for the karma. And thank you, ladies, for joining us. And, we do have people who watch afterwards. And I will also share it on Instagram and on our YouTube channel. So thank you, everybody, for being here. Do join us again. Thank you again, Elizabeth.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay,
Yes.
bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Do join us again on Thursday night when we have another amazing Elizabeth is a life coach. We have a therapist. She's a transformation therapist. She has some fancy technique, which has 99% success rate. She will bring another perspective, not necessarily a religious, spiritual one, but a scientific perspective. So do join us for that on Thursday, this Thursday, day after tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, when Diane Conkin, also a Canadian, will be with us. Thanks again, everybody, and have a good night.
Bye.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Let me go now, and I rewatched the live, so I'll have a good cry tonight.
All right, talk to you soon, Claudette.
Talk to
Bye
you
bye,
soon.
sweetie.
Bye-bye.
Bye.